how important a risk factor your gut microbiome is for heart disease and all the risk factors associated with heart disease.
Now let's get into the gut microbiome. I mean, this is so, from oral health gut microbiome, our nutritional impact, like how our nutrition impacts our gut microbiome, and some of the different philosophies out there, trends of diets out there, and how that impacts our gut microbiome. This is really, really important. And this is where I think men get away with a lot more than women, Stephen, because men have 10 times as much testosterone as women. And so and for our audience, like testosterone is a hormone that builds up your bone, builds up your muscle, makes you stronger, more solid, right? And it's an anabolic hormone. And, when we're, women 10 times less. And when we're stressed, cortisol is a catabolic hormone. It breaks us down. It makes us more susceptible to, of course, illness, disease, inflammation, hormone imbalance that are so critical. And the gut is impacted by all of this.
Your gut, it does so many things. I think we've known for some time, at least a decade or 20, in functional medicine, probably for 30 years now, we've talked about how the gut microbiome causes gut dysbiosis, gut symptoms, leaky gut syndrome. It's evolved. But maybe in the last 10 years, we started realizing the gut influenced your brain. It was like the second brain. I mean, the brain hormone, the brain neurotransmitters, most of them are produced in the gut. And then we realized there was the weight loss connection, that if you had the wrong gut microbes, you would gain weight despite what you ate. And if you had the right ones, you could lose weight. And more recently, we've realized it impacts all the heart risk factors, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your waistline, and your inflammation levels. That all of those are heavily related to the gut microbiome. In fact, the gut microbiome and leaky gut's probably the #1 cause for systemic inflammation. Number 2, you mentioned it, is the oral, the gingiva, the mouth, is probably the second leading cause of inflammation. So very important. But now we realize if you eat the wrong foods, as an example, if you eat lots of sugar and just red meat, you're going to form more TMAO, bacteria that produce a compound that increases your risk for heart disease and increases clotting and artery constriction by 62%. Much bigger risk factor than elevated cholesterol would be is if you make too much TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, that comes from the wrong gut bacteria that make this compound. So to me, if people thought they could be vegan, or a lot easier, probably from my perspective, maybe even healthier, is more of a Mediterranean diet that's going to help you have gut flora that are healthy and balanced and not make TMAO and reduce your risk and make you feel better. So yeah, it's been startling how important a risk factor your gut microbiome is for heart disease and all the risk factors associated with heart disease.
And I think that's one of the crucial findings. I don't know if you have your Mediterranean diet book there with you, but that you released in 2019, 2020, right? Just
Yes.
On the new year. Yeah, with me, with my Keto Green 16, right in the middle of a pandemic. But listen, you guys, get those books, Keto Green 16 and the Mediterranean diet. Dr. Masley's been traveling around the Mediterranean and is just a fabulous chef, and the herbs and spices to make everything fun and tasteful, but also medicinal. Food is medicine. He's just creating these great combinations. And I think that's one of the biggest things is like where in the keto world, in the carnivore world, it's like, okay, you guys, the gut microbiome for the long haul requires diversity within our diet, from herbs, spices, plants, and this nutritional basis. And I want you to comment on that because there is a lot of confusion around that.
One of our keys is to get those nutrient intakes. So of all the keto diets out there, yours is one of my favorite in that it focuses on adding green leafies and promoting alkalinity. Because if you're just eating meat and if that's all you're on a bacon and cheese diet and you're not getting those greens, you become acidic, you lose bone mass, you lose all these, your health falls apart. So if you are, it's key, no matter what we're doing, to meet our nutrient need. And berries and green leafies, those pigments are an essential part. One, those colors in the fiber are essential feeding source for our gut microbiome. That's what they use for fuel. So if you could take all the probiotic supplements you want, but if you don't get that colorful plant-based pigment and fiber, they won't survive. They'll starve to death. That's what their food source is. Our gut microbes and us are this symbiotic relationship where we need that. So the right plant pigments, the right nutrients, the right fats, all of that is an essential part of optimal health and making a difference.
Are cravings your downfall? This is truly typical of anyone trying to lose weight. Let me tell you, willpower is physiologic. Just like Francis discovered, the Keto Green Shake Mix is a tasty and nutritious way to replace a meal while helping you feel full longer and giving you the nourishment, vitamins, minerals, protein, fat that your body needs. So cut your cravings, boost your energy, and improve your overall fitness with the Keto Green Shake Mix. Find Keto Green Shake at dranna.com and use the code SHOW10 to get 10% off your first order risk-free. So talk about like the ideal day, an ideal day in your life, an ideal day in a perimenopausal, menopausal woman's life, and compare and contrast, like if there any comparison between men and women in approaching a heart healthy diet that's really addressing the gut microbiome, like first steps.
So of the foods I want people to add, number one is colorful fiber. And I'm not into grains as a fiber source because they have such a big blood sugar response. So I would prefer that people get their fiber from vegetable, fruit, beans, nuts, dark chocolate. Those would be their sources, not the grains. So that would be the number one source. Number two are healthy fats. I'm way over. You know that back in the 90s, I worked as the medical director at the Pritikin Longevity Center. It was an ultra low fat diet. None of my patients were able to follow it on a long-term basis. Many of them had jumps in their blood sugar levels, and oftentimes they felt worse doing that. So on that long-term basis when they tried to stick with it. So our brain needs healthy fat. Our hormones need healthy fat. And it helps with blood sugar control. So fiber, healthy fats, clean protein. My essential for protein is it's clean. I'm far less concerned about whether it has saturated fat or not, or whether it doesn't have hormones and pesticides and herbicides in it. So clean protein. Beneficial beverages is another essential of those food groups, because way too many people are drinking sweetened beverages or artificially sweetened beverages, and those artificial sweeteners, the pink and yellow and blue packs, kill the gut microbiome.
And it creates insulin resistance. It's the cruelest twist, really, because it's, I say, a cruel joke against women and men. I mean, because it makes you fatter. It really does. Increases cravings, makes you fatter, increases obesity, insulin resistant, diabetes. I mean, it's just terrible. No artificial sweeteners, none of those diet drinks. I mean, please, 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 if you're hearing anything, believe me, once you cleanse your palate, like in a 10-day, a 10-day keto green detox, or Dr. Masley's, following his 30-day heart plan, I mean, your taste buds will come back to life, and you will love eating no sugar stuff. And
very good
seen
point.
That over and over and over again. And plus, fat is satisfying. So you don't have to rely on willpower, because you won't be hungry, because we're balanced the menus so that you're not hungry.
People are not going to be able to rely on willpower. Willpower is going to get you through a few hours maybe, but if you've got cravings, they're overwhelming. And really nobody's able to use willpower. So we have to use a lot more common sense than trying to rely on willpower and calorie counting, which aren't going to work. So
yes, amen to that. Amen to that, for sure.
And lastly, some source of probiotics, whether it's, if you're able to use dairy, many people are dairy intolerant, but you can, I'm fine with organic yogurt, and kefir. But if you're dairy sensitive, and many people are, then you're looking for probiotics from another source, whether that's miso or sauerkraut or pickled. There's so many ways to get probiotics today. So those are my 5 key food groups that I really have people focus on. And while they're avoiding sugar and flour, they're focusing on these 5 food groups.
Can you go through the 5 again for us? Go through the 5.
Colorful fiber, not from a whole grain, please. So vegetable, fruit, beans, and nuts, colorful sources. Number 2 are smart fats. Number 3 would be clean protein. Number 4 are beneficial beverages, those that have pigments in it, like tea. I'm good with coffee and tea and red wine, all 3 of those in moderation, but lots of water and green drinks. Your
Mighty
theme.
Maca Plus. Absolutely. Where is it? Over here. Got to get that in. Seriously, alkalinizing.
That I can put in with my smoothie when I have a smoothie. So I've got that. So
that makes me happy. Thank you, Stephen.
And another thing that I think I've really adapted more recently is partial intermittent fasting. The idea of several days a week, not eating from 9 at night, and for me, and 9 at night until noon the next day. What time you do is you can shift it to meet your needs, but idea of a 14, 15-hour fast, several days per week, I think that ketosis has benefit, and it helps with insulin sensitivity. I mean, many things that I think, so those are my real themes that I'm focusing on that I think overlap in many ways with what you're trying to teach as well.
Absolutely. And what I love is, focusing on that intermittent fasting for both men and women. Let me tell you, like getting into ketosis isn't just necessary for women, it's mandatory, because the whole concept of our brain's use of fuel and our 2 times as much risk in Alzheimer, gluconeogenesis in the brain is estrogen dependent, right? When I found that out, it was like an aha moment, because in ketosis, when I'm keto alkaline or keto green, right, that combination, and I'm in ketosis, my brain's on fire. It's lit up. I am, alert. And when I'm not, I have the brain fog. And it doesn't matter, even if it was so interesting, even with supplementation of estrogen, that can help a little bit, and progesterone, certainly. But shifting into ketosis, I mean, it is, and we need as women to intermittent fast. We need to extend fast, and we need to really restrict those carbs. And I think there's a couple things that I want to address here. I definitely am on like eat dinner by 5, break fast by 9 a.m., something like that. It really depends, because I do work out fasting in the morning, and I like to break fast, within a couple hours after. And I want to talk about that exercise schedule, but I do on your number 4, beneficial beverages, alkaline water. What do you think about alkaline water, mineral water, as I sip my Topo Chico, because I'm in Texas and I'm addicted to Topo Chico, and then there's the ranch water too?
I think the most important source of alkalinity, though, comes from vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts. Those plant sources are going to be the most powerful source of alkalinity that we're going to get. Like your greens that you always talk about, greens. That's going to give you the big boost in alkalinity. You can get an additional boost with the fluids you drink for alkalinity. But to me, most of it comes from the greens, the fruit and vegetables, those sources, and cutting out the acidic foods that can tend to deplete that, especially refined grains that seem to decrease our alkalinity.
And create addiction and loss of willpower with those refined grains. There's a great little bakery, artisan boulangerie, that opened up down the street. It's very, very tempting. It's definitely like that addictive pull, those chocolate croissants. They're really authentic French croissants. Anyway, what do I know? So, but with that, I mean, it's so true, but we want clean water. We don't want to drink out of plastic bottles, clean, filtered. Glass, exactly. And if you're going to buy something, can I recommend my Topo Chico mineral water here in Texas? So no, I'm totally on board with everything you're saying. And thank you for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel here and get those notifications, and comment below. Let me know your thoughts, what you loved, and what your action step is.